What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome to my builds guide and banner review of the Halloween banner featuring Halloween Askr, Nagi, Nah, Lethe, and Yarne. I'll also be going over the fodder that you can use with them, and let's start with Halloween Askr, who despite not being the harmonic unit is still one of the stars of the banner in my opinion. So he's a colorless infantry piece this time around as well, and he has got Horn of Harvest as his preferred weapon. This gives him minus on special cooldown, and this has got the bulwark effect built in. So this is actually amazing to have an Aether Raids offense and Aether Raids defense in summer duels so that you can stop the enemies from sniping your backline units, and this way he can function as a pretty nice effective Omni tank. And speaking of being an Omni tank, he has got Breath of Life 4 built in this weapon, and this is slightly better Breath of Life because he's going to be getting the healing out of this even if he's away from the allies, and he doesn't really get the +4 defense out of this, but mostly this is Breath of Life 4, so it does help him against the pre-combat damage and the AoE specials, and this allows him to give additional support to his allies. And in the combat, if the foe initiates combat or if the foe's HP is at or above 75%, then he's going to be inflicting penalty on foe's attack and defense equal to 6 plus the number of allies in 3 spaces times 3. So this could go up to max 15, and this does help him tank because of the attack debuffs. So Breath of Life 4 already has deep wounds reduction by 50%, and then after having another layer of it, he's going to be having 75% deep wounds reduction, which is quite a lot. He also has true damage based on 20% of his defense, including the AoE specials, and even though he's not going to be AoE nuking, that is still one of the things that he could be run as because of his Slotsy skill. And then he gets his flat damage reduction based on 20% of his defense, and this is also going to be on the AoE specials of the enemies. So this does help him a bit against the AoE specials, but this is not as insane of an AoE damage reduction compared to that of Nagi, but still, again, this does help. And because he's an infantry piece, he's going to be able to get +2 visible attack when he's transformed, and he also gets +7 true damage on his special triggers, as well as getting the tempo effect. And he's going to be consistently transforming because of his Slotsy skill. He also brings a new special in Sturdy Beast, which is like Dragon's Roar but for the beast units, but this is again a bit better because if you're transformed, then you don't really have to meet any kind of defense check. So this is going to be functionally like a bonfire, but it is going to be giving you that 40% unpierceable damage reduction. So this does help a lot of the beast units, and this is the main special that he's going to be foddered for, and beast units have waited for something like this. They did get Fierce Beast, but that is mostly an offensive special, and a lot of infantry beasts already have access to full damage reduction piercing with Lagu's Friend. So this does help someone like New York Keaton, who recently got a weapon refine. He also has Breath of Life built in his weapon, but it is the selfish version, and because he doesn't have minus on special cooldown, his Sturdy Beast can work with Lagu's Friend 4 and give him that flat damage reduction and give the full damage reduction piercing on his special triggers. And he can also make use of distant bonus doubler at this kind of max investment, and his Slotsy is open to run something like Beast Threaten, so he can easily get the usage out of Sturdy Beast and also Emblem Ike. And Flame Tribe Mordecai is also kind of underrated. If you're still using him in your arena core, then he could definitely be used there as a scoring unit. Unfortunately, we don't have Distant Counter Beast Sacred Seal, but still he could be used with Stronghold for the extra defense and the cleansing, and then he could run Sturdy Beast with Lagu's Friend for having much more bulk. And one of the bulkiest beast units in the game is definitely Hathrin, so you could try and give her reopening from Askr at the same time while giving her Sturdy Beast. So this does make her a lot more bulky, but she can always run Pavis with Lagu's Friend. But if you don't have access to that, then this is definitely something she can try and run. Transforming while having Sturdy Beast is important so that you don't have to care about any kind of defense check, and that's why Beast Sacred Seal is pretty nice. And if you can have access to the other beast skills, then you could definitely try and run that in your slot B like Beast Assault. So Freyr could try and be a bit more bulky and at the same time be a bit more offensive by getting the damage reduction piercing with Beast Assault 4. So he's not running Fierce Beast here, but still he could get that damage reduction piercing. One of the tankiest beast units is also Ecthenir, so he could try and run this over Fierce Beast. So he's not going to be having that full damage reduction piercing, but he's going to be having a lot better bulk. So Emblem Secret is amazing on him so that he could get 4 movement, and then he cleanses any kind of stalled status on himself He could also run Fortification so that he could set up the Stone Train as he initiates combat, and then he could be insanely tanky. You could of course run this on regular Askr, and Sturdy Beast cannot really be run with Lagoose Friend on him because of his -1 special cooldown weapon, so that's why he does appreciate having Reopening, and at that kind of max investment he also makes use of the bonus doubler. Coming back to Halloween Askr, he has got an amazing slotsy skill in Connected World, so he can transform basically if he's within 2 spaces of any kind of ally from a different title, so he needs to be near any kind of non-Fey units and he's going to be transforming, so it makes it a lot easier for him to transform. And if that was not enough, in Aether Raids defense, he's going to be transforming turn 1, and this is going to be functioning similar to the Divine Vein Ice Rain, so he could immediately transform. And I kind of wish that a lot of the other beast units in Aether Raids defense like Hathrin for Mortis could also try and do this. And at start of turn and at start of enemy phase, if he's within 3 spaces of an ally from a different title, then he's going to be giving the following support to the allies in 3 spaces and also to himself. So he's able to give out +6 attack and defense buff, which does work nicely with his D bonus doubler, and he also gives the combo of Resonant Blades and Resonant Shields, just like regular Askr, and now he also gives the 50% damage reduction piercing status to himself and the allies, which does help if you're not running any kind of damage reduction piercing skills on those kinds of units. And then he has got the Time Pulse for support. So this is incredible as a support along with Breath of Life built in his weapon, because this allows you to Omni tank much easily with many of the units that may be running a special like Gust for example, or those kinds of specials, so they could benefit out of the looping of it while still taking advantage of the Breath of Life support that he has got in his weapon. And this does help him even in Gale Force teams, because just like regular Askr, he could be run. The looping is a lot less relevant, but still, the fact that he pulses down his allies is amazing for bringing down the cooldown of Gale Force. And then if he's within 3 spaces of an ally, then he's able to get +5 attack, defense, and resistance in the combat, and he also gets 40% damage reduction. So this is the unpierceable damage reduction, but this is not just on the first hit, but throughout the entire combat, which does make him a lot bulky with Reopening and also Sturdy Beast, and then the flat damage reduction out of his weapon. And he's definitely one of the better users of Reopening because he doesn't have the guaranteed follow-up attack, and he doesn't want to run Lagoose Friend along with Sturdy Beast because it's going to be a 2 cooldown special for him, and that doesn't really work as an offensive special with Lagoose Friend. So Reopening is pretty nice for him, giving that true damage and also even more flat damage reduction. Halloween Askr is an amazing Omni tank, and more than that, he's an insanely good support unit. And because he is so tanky, he does have applications as a tank in Aether Raids defense and also as a near savior in Summoner Duels. And his stat spread is incredibly min-maxed with 48 base defense with a super boon and also 45 resistance. So he has got amazing mixed bulk, and because of the fact that he has got such strong support in his kit, even if he falls off when it comes to his combat, he's going to be staying relevant as a support unit. So I really like him from this banner, and he is really versatile and can be used in different scenarios. So on a budget, you don't really need to change anything. Reopening works fine, and you could run Emblem Marth with Sturdy Beast so that it becomes a 1 cooldown special that is always gonna be available and charged because of his Time Pulse 4 and his slot C. So that could be run, but if you want more unpierceable damage reduction, then I guess Emblem Eye could be run. But I really like Emblem Marth on him, and after using him for a while, I kinda prefer Sturdy Beast with Reopening compared to Ignis with Lagoose Friend, because like I said, he already gets a lot of the good things out of Reopening, and he already has the 50% damage reduction piercing status from his slot C. So Lagoose Friend pretty much gives you the full damage reduction piercing, but you'll have to let go of Sturdy Beast in a special if you run that skill. So then you'll have to run Ignis, and there's no beast equivalent of godlike reflexes yet, so you would have to let go of that. But a scenario where Lagoose Friend is really good for him is definitely in Summoner Duels, where you could be running Pavis and he could function as a near savior with Brave Sorin. So he's incredibly powerful in Summoner Duels because he gives you the Breath of Life support, so any other unit who's going to be acting as a far savior is able to get that healing, and he also gives the Time Pulse 4 support. So because Pavis is a defensive special, it works with Lagoose Friend even with Emblem Marth, and you could have it as a 1 cooldown special that you could also trigger when you get doubled. Distant bonus doubler does work out with this kind of build, but if you have Earth Fire boost, then it could be run for the guard effect, and more importantly the extra HP, which is going to be nice for being a near savior. And you could even run Attack Defense Excel if you want to have more flat damage reduction, and then Hardy Bearing or any kind of Squad A Sacred Seal could be run on him. He could be run with Hardy Bearing or any kind of Squad A Sacred Seal, and you could also use him in Aether Raids offense in the ASKR season where there's going to be no Mythic ASKR. So if you want to get the pulse effect out of his Slotsy skill, then he could be run, but definitely watch out for the Breath of Life build in his weapon because that could definitely mess up your Wings of Mercy strats, so be careful around it. But you could try and run Gale Force with Emblem Marth so that it could be a 2 cooldown special, and then you could run Attack Speed Wild for mainly its special cooldown charging, so that way you could instantly trigger Gale Force because of the tempo effect built in his weapon, and it is pretty easy for him to get transformed and make the full use out of Attack Speed Wild and also the tempo effect out of his weapon. And Wings of Mercy is going to be needed as he's going to be a follow-up unit. Halloween Nagi is a red armored dragon with opposing stones as her perfect weapon. This gives her -1 special cooldown, and it also has effective damage against dragons, so even if she doesn't have that much of a player phase, she could definitely try and go in with something like Emblem Celica and nuke some of the dragons. Savalin Shield is built in her weapon, so she's not going to be weak to any kind of armor effective damage, and she also has distant counter built into this weapon, so you don't really need distant counter Dragon Sacred Seal. And then she's got the weapon strangle advantage against the colorless foes like the original Nagi, and because this is a Time Pulse 4 banner, she also has that built in her weapon. She does have the 80% damage reduction against the AoE specials, which can help her in far saving a lot, and especially with Hathrin or Breath of Life support, she can be incredibly resilient to the AoE specials, and this also helps her in the near saving because we have got a lot of AoE melee nukes like Brave Felix and Emblem Seeker, so it's an amazing thing that she has got going for her. And then in the combat, she's able to inflict the penalty on foes attack, defense, and resistance equal to 5 plus the number of allies in 3 spaces times 3. So this can go up to max 14, and if she triggers a save skill, then it is going to be treated as 14. So pretty easy to get that going. And then she's got flat damage reduction based on 20% of her resistance. But unfortunately, like ASKR, this doesn't really get applied for the AoE specials that she's going to be facing, but she does have the AoE damage reduction as it is built in this weapon, and she also heals up 7 HP after the combat. And she does have a bit of a supportive effect going on, where she could give the allies in 3 spaces the +4 to their attack, defense, and resistance, and also enabling them to heal up 7 HP after the combat. She's also really min-maxed with 48 base resistance, which is the highest in the game, and it also has a super boon, and she also has 45 base defense and 48 base attack. She doesn't really have as much HP as Nah, but still it is good as she is a 207 BST unit, and she does come with a new skill in Dragon Scales, so this is an upgrade of Dragon's Ire 3, and this is going to be able to give you debuffs in the combat to the foe's attack, defense, and resistance, depending on 4 plus the greater difference between the unit's defense or resistance minus foe's defense or resistance. So this could go up to max 11 debuffs, and if either of your defense or resistance is lower than foe's defense or resistance, then it is treated as 0. And this also gives you the guaranteed follow-up attack, which can help you with some of these lower dragons. And the best thing about this is definitely the special cooldown -1 jump, which you get before foe's first attack. So this can be helpful, and this is kind of the defensive special jumping, similar to Lagu's Friend, but of course this doesn't really give you any kind of flat damage reduction. Instead, it gives you 50% damage reduction piercing, so it is a decent skill, but it is going to be facing a lot of competition on the slot B of many dragons, because if you're an infantry dragon, then you could run Lagu's Friend, which gives you the flat damage reduction, which is really invaluable. And if you're a armored dragon, then you have access to stuff like Canny Fighter and Shield Fighter. And if you're a flying or a cavalry dragon, and if you're offensive, then now you've got access to momentum. So Dragon Scales is basically going to be there for some of these slower flying and cavalry dragons, and it can also be used on infantry dragons, I guess, if you don't have access to Lagu's friend, but ultimately that is going to be the better skill for tanking as per usual. So one of the better users of this is definitely going to be Brave Tiki, and again, I know Lagu's friend is a staple on her slot B, but she couldn't use Dragon's Roar along with it, and if you really want to use Dragon's Roar, then you could use Dragon Scales in the slot B, and she does have the 50% damage reduction piercing in her weapon, and stacking it up with Dragon Scale, it is going to be becoming 75%, so that is pretty good passive damage reduction piercing, and because of the special jumping in her weapon, and with Time Pulse Echo, you can always trigger Dragon's Roar in each phase on your first attack, so that does help in the player phase, but more importantly does help you in the enemy phase as well, and she's going to be having it always ready. And like I was saying, it is useful on these slow flying dragons, so Legendary Mer could try and run this. There's also Halloween Female Grima, but she is going to be a few months away from her weapon refine, and maybe then I'll feature her. But yeah, this is going to be helping you get that damage reduction piercing. High Dragon Wall is not needed on her as she already has the Warp Bubble with her slot C. And then on a Cavalry Dragon, I guess you could try and use this on Muspel. So with New Sunstone Plus and Excel Scale, you could try and stack up the flat damage reduction, and then Dragon Scale can give you the damage reduction piercing and also the special jumping. So not a lot of Cavalry Dragons, and a Ploy skill is also pretty nice with this skill. Coming back to Halloween Nagi, she does have another new skill in AR Twin Far Save. So this is going to be functioning as a Far Save skill, and against the ranged enemies, you're going to be getting +4 attack and resistance in the combat. And this basically allows your offensive damage reduction specials like Armored Flow, Armored Beacon, Dragon's Roar to activate its unpierceable damage reduction twice per combat. This does help Nagi as she has got Time Pulse 4 in her weapon, and then she gets a special jump out of Dragon Scale. So Dragon's Roar is going to be active on the first hit of the enemy where they're going to be getting scowled, and maybe if they trigger a special or something like that, or the W, which they're definitely going to be doing, then you could try and have the unpierceable damage reduction even on that hit. Now keep in mind that this doesn't work like Shield Fighter. This is not going to be activating your defensive specials twice like Pavis or Aegis, so this is only there for the offensive damage reduction specials, and this doesn't include the unpierceable damage reduction of Emblem Ike or any kind of engage ring in the future. So it can be helpful for being a bit more bulky, especially if you're trying to run any of these offensive specials, and then it also heals you up 7 HP in the combat on every single attack. So Nagi already has the healing in her weapon, and then she gets some in-combat healing. So this can be helpful on many of these save units, as if they don't have the self-sustain, they could try and get the healing out of this Lotsie skill. The tier 4 Far Save skill still scores 300 SP in Arena, so it doesn't really give you the SP boost like maybe something like High Dragon Wall. So if you were expecting that, you're going to be a bit disappointed. And this is a nice boost to some of the Far Saviors that want to use these kinds of specials. But even if you're running Shield Fighter, I guess it could still give you some healing, which could help you in some scenarios. So one of the armor units that wants to use their offensive special is definitely Winter Violet with their Supreme Heaven. So this tier 4 Far Save can go on them, and any kind of range armor who has no choice of running Shield Fighter with Aegis ultimately has to run Armored Flow or Armored Beacon. So this could also be run on them so that they could be a bit more bulky. And Marnie is going to be a special mention for these tier 4 save skills because she has got Miracle in her weapon. So any kind of healing is amazing. So this could also be run on her, especially on an arena build like this. Again, coming back to Halloween Nagi, because she's a harmonic unit, she's going to be giving the effect to the Arcania and Binding Blade units. And when you use her harmonic button, it is going to be giving you +6 attack and resistance buff to your allies and Nagi, and also the Resonant Shields status, and also the Dragon Shield status, which is going to be neutralizing any kind of dragon effective damage. And then she has got Warp Bubble, which is amazing for summoner duels, as you could have it for one of the turns, but it is not going to be as constant as Valentine Mer, but I guess it's a nice bonus. And it also cleanses any kind of penalty on Nagi and any kind of ally. So this is an amazing cleansing skill and kind of reminds me of Duoduma, but of course the harmonics restriction is going to be there, and she's only going to be cleansing the Arcania and Binding Blade units, and you also heal up 30 HP. So again, this is really helpful for summoner duels just for stalling and just to see what your opponent does. And in a pinch, this could definitely come in handy, but this is definitely not one of those duo or harmonic skills that could be used multiple times. So overall, Halloween Nagi is a pretty good far savior and also a near savior because of her weapon, giving her that 80% damage reduction against the AoE specials. She doesn't really have null counter disrupt built in her weapon like many of the modern far saviors, and she is pretty neat, but she's not going to be on the same scale of Duo Fjorm when it comes to the survivability, because Duo Fjorm is near invincible against the range attacks, and she also has the Ice Rain, which can help you in summoner duels. So Duo Fjorm is still the top far savior in my opinion, but Nagi is definitely the close second. On a budget, you could try and run Emblem Awakening so that you can get more unpierceable damage reduction, but again, it is not affected by the tier 4 save skills, and Dragon's Wrath could be a sacred seal that you could try and run. Hardy Bearing is also really good for any kind of far savior because of the Desperation Nukes and Brave Bernie. And unfortunately, Dragon Scale doesn't really do much for her survivability, so Canny Fighter can be one of the better options that you could try and run in her slot B. And because of the Scowl effect and a lot of the things that she's got in her weapon, she is one of the better users of this skill. And like I said, Hardy Bearing is pretty important for a far savior, so that could be the sacred seal of choice. And if you have even more expensive fodder for her, then you could try and run her with Shield Fighter. So with Aegis and Emblem Marth, she can easily trigger it with the special jumps of Shield Fighter, and this is the ultimate survivability build. So if you want to maximize that, then Shield Fighter is definitely the way to go. It is not something that she absolutely needs for tanking because she's a modern far savior and she's got a lot of effects in her weapon compared to the older far saviors which need Shield Fighter a lot more. But this definitely improves her survivability, and because she doesn't have a preferred skill, you could easily run and tune skill on her. Maybe in the future we get some better tune skills, but right now Guard Echo is pretty much the only one that you could try and run. And like I was saying, she's also a really good near savior because we do have a lot of melee nukes who can try and run the AoE specials. So in Aether Raids defense, she could function as a near savior with Shield Fighter and Pavis, and with the Breath of Life 4 or Hathrin support, she could be incredibly tanky and be super annoying for the AoE melee nukes. She can easily fend off against Brave Felixes, and with a Shield Fighter build, a tier 4 near save is not really needed from Nah, but I guess if you want to spoil her, then you could give that to her, but she's only going to be getting the extra healing out of it. And Wily Fighter is a pretty nice sacred seal that we've got now, so it does give you the guaranteed follow-up attack, but more importantly, it gives you the foe buff neutralization, which is really important in Aether Raids defense. Halloween Nah is a green armor dragon with Stone of Delights as her preferred weapon. This gives her -1 special cooldown, and she has got the pulse effect similar to that of Garrick, which checks for the HP of the allies, and if they have less HP than Nah, then she's going to be pulsing them down and also of course pulsing herself down. So it's a really unique support on an armor unit, that too with really high base HP, so she's going to be incredibly helpful in something like summoner duels and also in Aether Raids defense. And in the combat, if she's within 3 space of an ally, then she's going to be inflicting similar debuffs to that of Halloween Nagi. And this is also going to be max 14 debuff to foes attack, defense, and resistance. And if you trigger a save skill, then this is treated as max. And she also has true damage and flat damage reduction built in this weapon, but it depends on her max HP subtracted from foes HP at sort of the combat. And the max this can go up to is 16. So 16 flat damage reduction is actually really good with the bulk that she has got. And sometimes this kind of flat damage reduction can actually outperform the flat damage reduction that scales off one of the stats like defense or resistance. So getting 16 right away is actually really good with her insanely high HP. And then she has got the Scowl effect built in the weapon, so you don't really need to run that as a slotted skill, and she really wants to run the boost skill so that she can have extra HP. And then after the combat, if her special is at max cooldown, then she's going to be giving herself -1 special cooldown after the combat. So this is the spiral effect out of the Time Pulse 4. So this way she can loop her armored plays, and she also has the tier 4 near save skill, which is going to be functioning same way as the tier 4 far save skill, but this is going to be giving you +4 defense and resistance, and it gives you the near save effect, and it does allow your offensive damage reduction specials like Armored Blaze, Dragon's Roar, and stuff like that to give you the unpierceable damage reduction twice in a single round of combat. So like I explained with the Halloween Nagi section, this is going to be helping you quite a lot if you're going to be using these kinds of specials, and you also get the healing out of this. And there are many near saviors that straight up want to run Shield Fighter, but there are a couple of them like Ninja Zelgius who wants to make use out of his preferred special, so this goes really well on him. And again, there's going to be the mention of Marnie because of the miracle weapon, so if you want to run her as a near savior, this is also an option. This could also be run on Gatri as he's one of the best near saviors in the entire game, so if you don't have Shield Fighter to give to him, then this could also work out on him and any kind of other near save unit, and you also get Armored Blaze and Earth Fire boost at the same time. Overall, Halloween Nah is a pretty nice near savior, and she's definitely better than I thought. The matchup against Brave Felix is going to be a bit shaky depending on the supports that each unit has got, but if you just support her right, then she could try and stalemate him at the very least, but the second combat could be lethal because Felix gets another action, but she's definitely pretty promising as a near savior despite being a green unit. And if you want to use her as a far savior, then she could also work there, but she's not going to be up to the level of Nagi or, of course, not do a Yarne, but she is a 212 BST unit, which makes her a trainee BST armor unit, and she is the highest scoring unit in the game right now for arena game modes. Dragon skills can work on a budget, but there are definitely better skills that you could give to her, and you definitely want to run her with a squad A Sacred Seal so that you could boost up her HP, and I really like the HP boon on her, even though it's not a super boon. So this does help you not only with your bulk, but also with the HP check that the weapon has got for the flat damage reduction and the true damage. And I prefer this because Nah has got amazing HP compared to some of the other armor units who don't really have as much. And if you have the fodder, then of course, Shield Fighter is going to be there with a Pavis build for the max survivability. And just look at the insane HP that she's able to get. And this is with 2 anima buffs from Hathrin and Freyr. So she can be incredibly tanky, and especially when she's going to be getting the Breath of Life support from Divine Nectar, she's going to be even more resilient to a lot of the meta melee nukes, namely Brave Felix. So this is something you could try and run if you want to take her to the max level. And like I said, she is the highest scoring arena unit right now. So when you run her with High Dragon Wall, which is a 400 SP slot B skill, and with Distant Counter Dragon Sacred Seal, you get a unit who can score like a 230 BST unit. That is absurd. So if you're a big Nah fan, then far saving is definitely something she could try and do at this kind of max investment for arena usage. Halloween Lethe is a Blue Beast Cavalier with Hungry Cat Fang as her preferred weapon. She's got minus some special cooldown, and of course, the speciality of this banner, Time Pulse 4 built in her weapon. So this is pretty unique for a Cavalier. And then in the combat, if her HP is at or above 25%, then she's able to get up to max 14 to all of her stats, depending on the number of foes in 3 rows and 3 columns centered on her times 3. She also gets full null follow-up built into this weapon, and she also has the null guard effect built in. So if you're running something like Attack Speed Wild, and if you want to make use of these special charges, then you could easily do it because of the null guard in the weapon. And then she also has the full damage reduction piercing on her offensive special triggers. Now, she would be a pretty nice Gale Force unit, but she wants to run the offensive specials to get the full damage reduction piercing. And then she's got the Cavalry Beast transformation bonus, which does inflict attack and defense debuff on the enemy, and it also gives you 30% damage reduction, which is pierceable on foe's first attack. And she has got a pretty nice speed stat at base 47 with a super boon. Weirdly, she's got a super boon to her resistance, which doesn't really matter. And she's the 4-star focus unit of the banner, so if you're trying to merge her up, it is going to be comparatively easier. And she does bring attack speed clash 3 at 4-star and speed defense near trace 3 at 5-star. The near trace skill, I think, doesn't really matter much now because we have got Emblem Seaguard as an emblem ring, and the clash effect is pretty nice prerequisite for the clash 4 skills and the excel skills. So she's a pretty nice cavalry beast unit, having the full damage reduction piercing and also Time Pulse 4 built in her weapon. Obviously she's not going to be some insane unit, but still pretty neat if you're a big fan of her. And on a super budget build, you could try and run her with Moonbow, so that you can always have it pre-charge and loop it with the Time Pulse 4 built in her weapon. And Emblem Secret could still be run so that you could get the 4 movement out of it, and you also get the better fixed counter 3. And Savage Blow 3 could be run as the Slotsy skill on super budget, and you could just double down with the Clash skill. But if you have an extra rearmed Aether and you also have some kind of Clash for fodder, then this is the build that you could try and run on her. So Emblem Marth could be run so that you could have Luna as a 1 cooldown special, and then you loop it because of Time Pulse 4 in her weapon. And Beast Sense 4 is one of the beast skills that you could try and run because she already has the damage reduction piercing, so Beast Assault makes no sense. She already has full damage, she already has full null follow-up, so Beast Agility also doesn't make sense. And what makes a bit of sense is definitely Beast Sense for giving her the damage reduction, which can help her be a bit more bulky. And then you could also get Alarm Attack Speed at the same time from Rearmed Aether. And the natural progression of this build is going to be into Attack Speed XL, giving her the flat damage reduction. And then you could also run Beast Threaten. So Sturdy Beast is actually one of the better specials for her, despite her not having some insanely high defense stat. But again, as long as you're transformed, you don't have to meet the defense check. And this allows you to have the unpierceable damage reduction. And this can actually be helpful than Fierce Beast, which doesn't do anything on her because she already has the full damage reduction piercing. So with Beast Threaten and Time Pulse 4 in her weapon, she could have this pre-charged. And Beast Threaten is only going to be helpful on the first combat because it has got the Time Pulse 3 effect, but still you could panic the enemies, which can be helpful. And Emblem Secret is going to be needed to get the Canto and also the +1 movement. And then at the absolute max investment, you could try and run her with Momentum 4, and she could run Dragon Fang as her special. So it is going to be a 2 cooldown special with her Time Pulse weapon, and then Momentum special jump is going to be making a trigger. Momentum also gives her the true damage, which is something that she's lacking in her weapon, so it does improve her damage output a bit, and that's something that Halloween Yarne already has got. So it definitely patches up her weakness, and her slots is going to be depending on the utility you're trying to get with her. So Shadow Shift is of course really amazing with its repositioned Canto, and if you don't really have it, then Beast Threaten could be run. And if you don't have it, then Inside Attack Speed is also one of the options. And this is one of the builds that fully utilizes all of the effects that she has got in her weapon to the advantage. The full damage reduction piercing, the Time Pulse 4, which all goes really well with Momentum 4. Halloween Yarne is the Tempest Shroud reward out of this batch, and he's a Red Beast Cavalier with full Rabbit Fang as his preferred weapon. This doesn't really have the fixed Canto, but instead it has got the Near Trace effect built in. So this is the Canto remaining +1, and then he has got the effective damage against the cavalry unit as per usual, and also +3 speed. And at start of turn, if the number of adjacent non-dragon or non-beast allies is 1 or less than 1, or if he's transformed, then he's able to get -1 special pulse to himself at start of turn. Now keep in mind that this is kind of like Pulse Up Blades, so you could wait for a couple of turns and pre-charge the special, which is definitely pretty nice. And then he's able to get max 14 to all of his stats depending on the number of foes in 3 rows and 3 columns times 3. And he also has true damage based on 20% of his speed. Unfortunately, this is not going to be getting added to his AU specials, which would have been really awesome with the pulse effect that he has got in his weapon and also the special spiral. But oh well, he gets full null follow-up out of this weapon just like Halloween Lethe, and he also gets -2 special cooldown after the combat if his HP is at or below 90%. So this is similar to what we have seen before on other Yarne alts, and this is going to be acting as the spiral effect. So you could just run any kind of chip damage skill to fall into the HP range, which is not the hardest, and then he's able to get the Cavalry Beast transformation effect. And his attack is a bit more than Halloween Lethe, but his speed is going to be a bit less at base 45, and it also has a super boon, so that is something you're going to be using quite a lot. And he does come with Beast Sense 3 at 5-star. Now it's definitely not one of the insane beast skills in my opinion, but still it's pretty nice if you've got some rearmed Aethers that you wanted to fodder. And he also has Rouse Speed Defense 3 at 4-star. And even at a budget build, you could just run him with Fury 3 and run him with the Clash Secret Seal. And Emblem Secret is going to be giving you that 4 movement, which is really helpful. so it could be run even though he already has the Neotrace effect built in his weapon. A bit of overlap doesn't really matter much in my opinion, and if you have rearmed Aether, then you could of course give him the tier 4 Beast Sense, which does have the Phantom Speed effect built in, so it is definitely a lot better. And you can also run tier 4 Clash Kill, and he's mainly going to be running Gale Force because of his weapon, because of the Spiral effect and the Pulse effect. And if you want to run a different special, then Fierce Beast is going to be the option because he doesn't have the full damage reduction piercing like Halloween Lethe. So this is something you could try and get, and instead of Clash Force skill, you could run Attack Speed XL, and Beast Threaten could also be run. So because of the Pulse effect of his weapon, he can have Fierce Beast pre-charge because of Beast Threaten, and then he can loop it because of his weapon, so it does work really well on him. And if you're going to be using him in Aether Raids offense, then he could be run as a Wings of Mercy follow-up unit. I don't really think that he's going to be that good of an initiator compared to someone like Brave Felix, who has got an extra action, who could break the ice and then maybe get in on many of the Gale Force teams. So he's not going to be having that kind of power, and that's why as a follow-up he's going to be a bit better. So Emblem Marth could be used, and then he could also provide you the support with Beast Threaten and lower the cooldown of his Gale Force. And Flared Sparrow can be helpful so that he could get the pre-combat damage and also set up the flame terrain. And even though you could run him with Beast Sense 4, I think the Beast Assault 4 is a bit better slot B skill for him because it provides him the damage reduction piercing, and that is really helpful when you're running Gale Force and not Fierce Beast. So that is also an option with him. And finally, just like any kind of Cavalier, he could run Momentum, and even though Momentum overlaps a lot with his weapon, the main thing is going to be the true damage that you get out of it, which can be stacked up with the true damage built in his weapon. So he could have a pretty nice damage output with it, and with Momentum 4, you should definitely be running Fierce Beast, as you could immediately trigger it because either of your pulse effects from the weapon or with Momentum Force special jumping. I want to thank all of my YouTube members for their constant support, and you can click the link on the screen right now to check out my breakdown of the new weapon refines of this month, and make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as Emblem Awakening with tier 4 far saves. So with that, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.